and welcome to the Author Roundup, a special segment of the Book Connection Show where we meet up and coming indie authors and talk to them about their recently released books. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Author Roundup. I'm Jenny, your host, and I'm so glad you could join us today. If you've ever wondered what it really takes to build a career in safety or how the role is evolving in today's world, then today's episode is for you. We'll be talking about becoming a safety professional, a practical guide for your next era, a book designed to help readers understand the profession, develop the right skills and mindset, and grow into impactful safety leaders. Our guest today is the author Charles Edgar. With more than 25 years of experience in the global energy industry, leading safety initiatives in high risk operations, he brings a wealth of knowledge and perspective to the conversation. He's a certified safety professional and holds several industry recognized safety credentials. As an ICF credentialed coach, he advocates for a shift toward coaching based leadership and strong safety cultures. Charles, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to ask you questions about your book. What first inspired you to write Becoming a Safety Professional, and why did this feel like the right time to release it?
My major inspiration for writing this book actually comes from the fact that over the years in my career, I've been getting a lot of questions. I mentor people, I mentor young safety professionals, and throughout my career, because I've had, as you mentioned, over 25 years of safety experience across the Middle East and Africa. And I've mentored a lot of people. I've engaged with a lot of safety professionals, and I find that there is a gap. People keep asking, how do I become a safety professional? How do I thrive in this field? So I've tried my best to, explain this, sort of guide people, mentor people, but I found out that there was no framework, there was no guidance, there was nothing formal. So people didn't really know how to navigate this profession. You know, how do you be the best? How do you get into this profession, either from school or those maybe probably trying to transition from another career path into this profession? And where do you go from there? You know, so what kind of educational qualifications do you need? What kind of skills? What kind of experience? What kind of capacity do you need to build? So these were the things that challenged me. And I asked myself, okay, I looked around to say, okay, is there any literature of sort? And I found that there was actually nothing. So that inspired me. That was about sometimes 2, 3 years ago to do this. So I started putting together materials, researching, talking to colleagues, talking to other safety professionals, and that actually brought the idea and started working on it, basically to try to provide a framework and to guide people who want to come into this profession. And I try to make it as easy as possible, because if you look at the book, it's more like a workbook. It's a handbook, basically. So there are assessments there. You assess where you are, where do you want to be, so you can sort of develop a roadmap that could help you move from where you are at this point to where you want to be.
Mhm. That's great. So you saw the need for your book because, like you've said, there is a gap, and writing a book would be the best way to bridge that gap. Now, the subtitle of your book, A Practical Guide for Your Next Era, what does next era mean to you in the context of safety?
A practical guide for the next era, basically, it's it's like a cliche to say this is where you want to be. This is a guide for you. Now, the next era in safety, as we know, safety is evolving like every other thing because the workplace as we knew it is completely evolving. It's no longer the way it used to be, especially with the advent of AI, with the advent of human operational, uh, that's HOP, and other um, dynamics that come into play in the workplace. So it's evolving and doing so very rapidly. Now, you would, as safety professionals, one of the key things that we do is to stay enlightened. You know, you need to stay abreast with the new information, new regulations. New as the workplace is evolving. You need to stay up to date. So the next era for us is the new workplace. Post-COVID, we had a different kind of workplace that we called the new normal as at then, remote working, hybrid working, and several others, AI and things like that. So this is for me the next era. So how do you evolve as a safety professional? How do you stay abreast with the requirements, with the standards and the regulations, and also the human aspects of safety? So how do you stay engaged? How do you get to understand how the workplace is moving and how do you get relevant? So for me, that is the next era.
Mhm. Yes, I agree. Everything is really changing so fast, and everyone needs to really anticipate what's about to happen and, keep themselves abreast of everything that's going on around them. When you were writing this book, Charles, who were you primarily thinking about? Who would benefit most from this book?
When I was writing this book, one of the that's the group of people that I was looking at are the young safety professionals, those that are aspiring to become safety professionals. Now, the idea behind it is to provide them with a roadmap, with a guidance, so that they can be able to navigate this. Because when someone says, I'm a safety professional, exactly what does that mean? So, the context that I bring in this book is basically to help them understand the different career paths within safety. So when you say I'm a safety professional, where do you want to go? There are different paths, there are different fields within health and safety, as well as environment, also industrial hygiene, and several others. So people need to understand where it is they want to go, so as they can build capacity, build competencies in that. So those who are new to the profession, those who are aspiring to become, those who are already in the profession that do not understand where they want to go to, what's next for me? How do I grow within this profession? Then there are those who stumbled into the profession some way. They like it because whatever they are doing as at now aligns sort of with the profession. That's people like veterans, people like who are already into maybe firefighting, people who are already into medical line and things like that. So even people in operations would like to be, they've had a operational experience and they feel like, okay, I can contribute beyond just operations, maybe contribute to building safer systems. Because remember, safety is not different from operations, actually. It's actually operating safely. So when you look at safety as just being a different field, it's supposed to be integrated. Our job as safety professionals basically is to help those who are actually performing the job to integrate safety into their practices. So at the end of the day, they operate or they produce or manufacture safely. So these are the cadre of people that I was looking at when I was putting together the manuscript for this book.
I see. So, having said that and identifying who would benefit most from your book, like you've said, a lot of people will benefit from it, not just safety professionals per se, but even those in operations. What do you hope readers would understand differently about the safety profession after finishing reading your book?
Okay, one of the key things that I dealt with in this book actually is the stereotypes. the misconception of what is safety, you know, because there's this feeling, and from quite early in my career, I also fell into that trap, you know, the safety professional being seen like more like a compliance policeman on site.
Mhm.
So everybody behaves themselves when the safety professional is around, and the safety professional moving around with his clipboard and pen and checking people who are, where is your, why are you not wearing your hard hat? And keep like you're policing people and
Yeah.
catching people. So this is the one of the major misconception of the safety profession. Then I looked at it. I know I dealt with several misconceptions about that's key stereotypes that's common ones that people actually attribute to the profession. So I try to explain why the modern safety professional has to be seen different from this, and let people try and understand that this is not what safety is about. Safety is about recognizing the, that people are an essential part of the workplace, and we try as much as possible to put systems in place to bring the best out of people, not necessarily wanting to catch people at doing wrong, the kind of gotcha kind of the, and disciplinary and stuff like that, but getting people to understand the why behind the what. So when you're telling somebody, do not do this, people really need to know why they do not do it so that even when you are not there, they are actually doing it by default.
Mm, I see. So you already started to talk about the clipboard police, and you said that you challenged that stereotype. You may have answered this already a little bit, but why was it really important for you to address that image early on in the book?
Yes, because actually, I needed to sort of ensure that people sort of had a different perspective to safety. Because
Mhm.
at some point, the first thing that everybody sees immediately you pick this book, they actually thinks that, oh, this is for just safety people, or is it not the same kind of people? So that there's a kind of mindset that stays with people when you hear about safety. So I needed to clear the air on that to make you understand that yes, as much as possible, these are the common misconceptions. These are the common issues that people, or the ideas that people, the perceptions basically that people have about safety, and it even resonates even within our people. That's, I mean, the
Mhm.
safety professionals themselves, because they actually inadvertently do act in this way that gives credence to this perception. So I had to deal with that in the beginning of the book. So let people have an open mind as they approach the other aspects that I deal with in the book.
Mhm. Aside from what you've said about safety professionals being clipboard police, are there other common misconceptions about them that you wanted this book to correct?
Yes, actually, you know, there's beyond just being clipboard police. Um, there are people who feel that safety is all about stopping work, you
Mhm.
know. And actually this perception is a lot among safety professionals. They feel that they have the power, they can walk into the place and just stop the work and say, no, you don't do, you are not complying, everybody stop the work, this kind of things. you know yes, it is good if there is a if there's a reason that you have to do that, yes, but that's not really the major reason why you are a safety professional in the field. You are there to understand why these things actually happen. And the only way for you to be able to do that is to engage with those who actually do the job. Because when you meet with those who actually do the job, you will find out there are underlying issues that do not really actually jump up at the peripheral level. You need to understand why these things do happen, and you need to drill down to the root causes why they do and deal with them there, so that at the end of the day, you are able to solve those problems even before they surface. And you will not be able to understand that if you do not engage. That's why the human aspects come into it. That's why the conversations needs to happen in the field where the work is actually happening. So That's one of the misconception. Another misconception that I deal with in the book is also having people seeing this concept of safety and production always being in conflict. That people says that the safety is always having problems with production people. They don't like each other, and that shouldn't be the case. We should complement each other. You know, the immature safety culture is the one where you have those who are in production or those who are actually in manufacturing or constructing, that's construction. These people are the one advocating for safety because they want to, they know that safety is of value to them, you know. So other things, another misconception is anybody can do safety. Safety is something anyone can do. No, that's not the point. No, in as much as everybody needs to be safe in the workplace, but it's a structured process. It's a structured profession in its way. And you build capacity over time from experience, from your training, as well as your engagement and all of that. You build capacity over time. And safety is not just something where you would say just pick up anybody and say get your hard hat, get your vest or coveralls, and you put him on the site and tell him this is my safety officer, go ahead and just take your clipboard and start working. It doesn't work like that, you know. So these are some of the misconceptions that we put out there. That's out there actually that we try to address so that we get people to change their mindset towards safety as a profession.
Mhm. So you talk about the misconceptions, and in your book, you also describe safety as deeply human centered. How did
Yeah.
your own career experiences shape that belief?
Okay, when I say human centered, I mean at the end of the day we are dealing with the human. There's a human aspect to it because you are engaging with people. Like I mentioned before, um, at the end of the day, we write procedures. Okay, we give rules in the workplace, but these rules are not meant to stop the job. They are meant to improve the job. They are meant to make the job easy and safer for the people that are carrying out the job. But if you do not understand the challenges that the people who are carrying out the job are actually faced with, you will not be able to understand exactly why they are breaking the rules. Because at
Mhm.
the end of the day, if the rules are not realistic, if the policies or the procedures are not realistic, they don't fit the conditions that people face in the field, people will walk around them. So until you try to understand why these things are there, you will not be able to help them improve on their processes. And if you don't engage with these people, if you don't create an atmosphere where they can speak up, where they can open up, and this is what we're talking about: psychological safety, emotional intelligence also. If you don't create such environment, these people will not open up and be able to explain to you why they do what they do and the kind of challenges they face. And so that because somehow there's a difference between work as imagined and work as done in the field. There's a whole study around that. So people who are in the field, they feel the brunt. So until you create that atmosphere, now in my experience, when I started safety, much of what we were doing was majorly compliance based. You know, we always push for compliance, which is the second, my other book, the theme of my other book, Beyond Compliance. Compliance is good, no doubt. However, we need to go beyond compliance to understand why people do not comply. What is the reason? Because I don't believe people wake up in the morning, go to work, planning not to do a good job or planning to break the rules today. But the circumstances that they find on the field, some of these circumstances are not captured in their procedures. They are not captured in the rules. So they just find themselves in scenarios that they have to do the job, but the rules are not that are at variance with what the reality is on the ground. So somehow they have to bend the rules to be able to achieve their objective. Now we need to study this. We need to understand why this is happening, and we need to engage with these people and give them a platform to be able to speak freely early and open up and let us know exactly what are the challenges that they are facing, and then we address this. So that's the human aspect of it. But until you create that space, until you create that space, you won't have the opportunity to learn from them.
I think that's clear now that you've given us a different perspective on what safety professionals should be. They are not just rule enforcers, right? But coaches, mentors, trusted advisors, and culture shapers. Now, how does someone begin making that shift in real life from rule enforcers to a lot of different rules?
I would tell you it's not very easy because I am an advocate for it because I push for it daily. And even with my years of experience trying to shift my strategy towards managing safety at the work site and in the workplaces, I still find out sometimes that I sometimes drift back into that mode because somehow by default, this is the way many safety professionals were wired, or let me say, introduced to the role as from the beginning. So I think right now we have to recognize that as safety professionals, we are influencers. Actually, we are people. We have to understand that there are workplace dynamics that we have to work around, and some of these things, like there are human aspects of it. So we have to see ourselves as people, culture changers, people who impact change, people who drive for change, people will engage and try to get people, appeal to the hearts and minds of people and let people understand why they need to change, why they need to move away from the way things are being done in the past and to move to much safer ways of doing things. So it hasn't been an easy shift, okay? And for me, one of the things that I did earlier on when I started understanding that safety wasn't really about, it wasn't necessarily all about enforcing the rules, but partnering with the people who actually design the work, people who do the job on site to be able to come up with outcomes that actually works for all parties. Now, you have to understand that in the real world where we are, we have constraints in the work site. Time constraints, production constraints, budget constraints, and even conflicts, conflicting priorities in the workplace. So you're working around all of these things at the end of the day to be able to come up with an outcome that at the end of the day we want to produce. We want to achieve our objectives, but we want to do that safely in the same time. So all of these things needs to be balanced. And one of the things that I did when I realized this was I actually studied to become a coach. I trained to become a coach. So that's why I pursued the ICF credential. I did that to try to understand how uh, how can I integrate coaching into safety? And what is coaching basically? Well, coaching is actually partnering with your clients, and now in this case, the persons that you are coaching, to not tell them what to do, but to use insightful conversations and questions to be able to help them think and help them articulate their objectives and come up with a plan that they own and they are willing to walk around it to be able to achieve their stated objectives. So this aligned with my approach to safety, having to move beyond compliance to having these conversations with people to let people see the why behind the what so that they can achieve their objectives and balance the priorities.
Definitely not an easy job. So, your book highlights technical, human, leadership, and digital skills for the safety professional. Which of these do you think most safety professionals would often underestimate?
For me, I think the human aspect is one aspect that a lot of people do underestimate. Peripherally, I think I've dealt with that because the people, we are humans first before whatever we do. So we need to understand. that people have emotions, people have things that actually influence their decision making.
Mhm.
Okay. One of the things I'm working on right now is actually I'm working on studying on a framework that looks at leadership judgment under pressure. So, because ordinarily, when people are working under pressure, this influences their judgment and it affects their thinking under pressure. And as a result, they may take decisions that ordinarily, if they were in a more relaxed and calm atmosphere, they wouldn't be taking such decisions. But they have to take these decisions. It's like walking and chewing gum. And walking and thinking at the same time. Not many people can handle this. So, um, basically, the human aspect is very, very key. People need to be able to handle pressure, especially people who are decision makers. They need to be able to handle pressure and they need to be able to balance perspectives, different perspectives. And they really need also to think under pressure. Need to slow down thinking under pressure. They need to be able to create atmosphere to invite voice because the people, like I mentioned before, the people who are actually doing this job there, they know the challenges. But as a leader, if you are not able to create an atmosphere for these people to surface these challenges, your decision making will be flawed. Then
Mhm.
another thing, you should be able to challenge assumptions. It's important that we challenge assumptions. Now, we challenge our biases. We're able to understand, why am I taking this decision? Is it because I have a particular bias, maybe a confirmation bias or something like that? So we need to be able to challenge this. And then ownership, very, very important. We need to see the system as an integrated system. Any decision that I take, what will be the impact of this decision down the line? We need to be able to see the whole system. That systems thinking as a whole, not seeing only just an aspect of it, only to be blindsided. So, and then we need to take ownership. So at the end of the day, it's a blend of all of this. It's a mix of the human, a mix of also leadership, very, very important leadership, because as safety professionals, as you grow in the profession, you become a leader. You become a leader because not just people start to see you as a leader because why? You have influence. Your influence grows with time. You engage, you build relationships with people that actually have capital. That's authority, power, influence. There are different types of leaderships in the field. So we don't only just engage with positional leadership. Now, when I mean
Mhm.
positional leadership, just those who have positions of authority within the field, there are other forms of leaderships. There are people who, like in a group of people, there are people who influence other people to do certain things. They may not have positions of leadership, but they have that either expert leadership or they have a kind of the people gravitate to them maybe because of the nature of their the way they engage, the way you know the way that they build rapport with people. So people believe in them and people listen to them and they just whatever decision they take, those people just gravitate to them. So once you understand and identify those kind of people, they become your change actors. If you are able to bring them as early adopters into your change process, they will help you drive the change. So these are the things that as safety professionals you navigate, being able to balance all of that. And the technical aspect of it is very important. Like I said, it's a mix of all of this because at the end of the day, there are frameworks, there are technical understanding that you need to have. And that brings me to what I was telling you about your field. As a safety professional, there are different aspects of the safety profession. So you need to be grounded in the technical aspects of it also, so that when you are talking to people in the field, production people, you speak their language. It's not
Mhm.
that you are completely out. You don't even know what
Yeah.
they are talking about. So whatever process you are involved with, whether it's an oil and gas plant, a manufacturing, chemical manufacturing, or in the construction field, aviation, or wherever you find yourself, you need to be grounded technically on what is happening in these areas and what tools within the process, that's the field that you can leverage to be able to assist or provide support to this team.
I see. So the technical skills, like you've said, that's a basic thing that you should have, right? And apart from that, you also mentioned about human and leadership skills as also very important for safety professionals. In line with that, we talk about emotional intelligence and influence. I think you touched on this a little bit. How can
Mm.
they develop that as they move along in their career?
Emotional intelligence, basically, like I'll talk about my own experience. Over time, like I said, safety is relational. Like every other workplace, is relational. You need to build social capital. You need to engage with people. You need to build relationships. You need to get people to see you as who you are, as human. Not, you need to understand people's issues. You need to know why these things are happening, why people take decisions in with the way that they do. And once people begin to see that you break the charade, you break the barrier, and you are engaging, you need to know the people. For instance, you are in the workplace. You need to know the names of the people. You need to put a name to the face. You don't just come in and just start being like what I said before, the police approach, the policeman approach.
Word
You
police.
need to start to you need to start to see people for who they are. You come in, you build rapport with people, you engage with them, you try to get to know them, know what they are facing, know them beyond just the workplace. So that way, people trust you. So this social capital, people build trust, people engage. People will tell you things that they cannot even tell to their bosses. That's their line bosses. They will tell you because they know that you genuinely want to help them. This is where authentic leadership comes in. You walk the talk, you build trust. You ensure that you follow through. You try to be a problem solver. And people, when the moment people start seeing that you genuinely have their interest in heart, they will open up to you. And then you give them an opportunity, you give them a safe space to be able to confide in you, to be able to speak to you freely and tell you exactly what they are facing. Now you start building capacities. The first thing any leader needs to do actually is to create space for people to be able to have a safe conversation with you and build trust. Once you are able to do that, people will bend over their backs for you. They will go out of their way to provide information because the quality of your decision making depends on the quality of the information that you get. So if you are not getting the right kind of information, your chances are that you're not really going to be making the right decisions. And how do you get this information? Apart from the systems that are in place to provide you inputs for this information, the people who are actually there, they are a great resource for this information. But if you don't build that space to be able to get this information, that's the people you would not be able to access that critical aspect of the job. And your information, the limitation that you have in information will affect the quality of decisions that you will be taking.
I see. So, very practical suggestions about how to work on your emotional intelligence and all that. But one takeaway I can get from that is it all starts with communication, right? Like communicating with the people you work with and all that. And it's not something that you can do or that can happen overnight. Like you've said, you have to work on it, right? It's not something that you can
Yes.
just achieve right away, the blink of an eye or something. Okay, so Charles, I want to go back to what you mentioned earlier about the evolving workplace, because in your book, you also discuss technology, data, AI, wearables, dashboards, and predictive safety. How should safety professionals embrace technology without losing the human side of the work?
Okay, that's good. That's a great question. You know, one of the key things that we do as safety professionals is to gather information also. We gather information from the field, HSC related information, that health safety information. We gather data and we do analysis of this data, both during when there is no incident and as well as when we have an incident. We do a proactive analysis or reactive analysis, as the case may be, to identify patterns, to identify some to identify areas that for improvement. Now, it's a painstaking process if you have to do it manually, having to collect all of this information, put them together, and begin to analyze them, and begin to do some evaluation to identify what could be happening and all of that. Because at the end of the day, the output from this process is to improve on a particular aspect and on areas that you have identified that are having deficiencies. So what's good about the system today? Things have changed. There are different processes for obtaining information, and this is what AI has brought now. There's a lot of uh, diagnostic tools now for gathering information from the field, right from the production sensors and so many other things that are being introduced now, the wearables also. And so these things help us to gather information quickly and a large number of information, and as well as able to assess this information and evaluate it and help us to interpret this information. Now, we still have to maintain the human aspect of it, because at the end of the day, collecting all of these informations and assessing, evaluating, analyzing all of this information, we still have to remember that we are dealing with people. Okay, there are there's a people aspect of it. There's also the process aspect of it. That's systems aspect of it, and some of these the tools that we use also apply to safety and reliability systems when it comes to production facilities and so on. But there's also the information that applies to humans, as in people. So there's always a tendency for people to want to hide some information. There's always a tendency for people to want to suppress some
Mhm.
kind of information if it does not favor them. Or some people could even be engaged in greenwashing. We call it safety greenwashing, just doing it for the sake of doing it so that people see that we are doing it, but the real genuine intent of the process is not there. So these are things that as a safety professional you need to understand, that this there are different aspects to it, but technology has rapidly improved the ability of that's our ability as safety professionals to be able to do all of this, to gather the information, analyze the information, and use these tools to our benefits. There are so many tools that we can use these days, so many tools for evaluating, so many tools for assessments, so many tools like that, so which are very helpful. And I think as a safety professional, we need to, as things are, the workplace is evolving, we need to evolve with it. We need to learn these things. We need to embrace the change, and so that the safety professional of the future is the safety professional that understands the changes in the workplace and keeps up to date. If you stay and allow the changes go, because things are changing very rapidly, you know, people are using AI these days to do a lot of things that they didn't do before. Even virtual reality is coming in training, and things like that is coming into the foray. So you need to actually evolve, get abreast on them, and utilize these things to improve your work.
I like that. So technology is not something that we should be scared of or afraid of. We should embrace it, like you've said, because use it to our advantage, right?
Yes, actually, there's an ongoing conversation that I see online.
Yeah.
People saying that AI will eventually replace people in the
Humans.
workplace, including safety profession. Actually, including safety profession, it's real. But so far, I believe that yes, this is possible. But I think AI will only replace those that do not adapt to the AI, that's use it to their advantage. So,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, what we spent many hours doing, if you can leverage AI, you can shorten the time and get the same results. So, people need to adapt. People need to learn. People need to go beyond what was happening in the past and start understanding how they can, what tools are available to me, how can we use those tools? How can we use those tools to deliver what we were delivering in the past and deliver even more now? So people need to embrace technology, and they need to, not just people themselves, but I think organizations as a whole, they need
Yes.
to invest in it. They need to invest, and as much as possible, with from the people aspect of it, people need to have a mindset of learning. Okay, you have to keep learning. You have to be a lifelong learner so that you can adapt to the situation that as it's evolving.
Yes. So, Charles, shifting gears right now, we would also want to know about your experience as an author while you were working on your book. What was the writing process like for you, and how long did it take to finish the book?
Uh, I started, like I said before, I've been writing this book that's putting together the manuscripts, the ideas, the scribbles here and there for the last 3 years.
Mhm.
But I was able to settle down to write it in the last 1 year, actually, to put together, actually sit down and purposefully, intentionally say, I want to write this. Let me try and complete this. So it's not an easy thing, actually. It wasn't easy for me because I'm busy. I have a daytime job, and I do other things, my personal development. I'm studying also. I'm developing myself. I'm doing some trainings. Like I mentioned, the coaching training that I did, it took me 25 weeks to get that done, you know. So, uh, all of these things, I had to balance them to be able to do it. And I thank my wife a lot because she kept reminding me, hey, are you still doing it? What are you doing? Have you forgotten it? And I was actually working on two manuscripts. The first one is the becoming the safety professional, while the other one is going beyond compliance and integrating coaching into safety. So that's what's a really big one. But I was intentional. I wanted to finish it last year, but unfortunately I couldn't, and I ended up pushing it into 2026. So it's challenging,
Mhm.
and I understand that there were times I felt like giving up, just leave it and don't do it any longer. Just allow it, procrastinate on it and like that. So, but at the end of the day, I felt like I've been 25 years now. This is my 26th year in the safety profession, and I've been around, and I felt like I have this information, I have knowledge, I have experience, and I need to leave a legacy. I need to be able to speak about the things that I know, you know, and that drove me actually to put some of these things down and to try to share this knowledge, and beyond just the books. I was just sitting down. I thought to myself, why don't you speak about these things? Then the idea of having a podcast came up, and I thought about it, and I looked at what it is, and then I started one to be able to also speak about safety. And the
Mhm.
focus for me was beyond just writing these books. The focus was, what do those conversations that people need to have in the field where real work happens? People hardly talk about it. People hardly expose the challenges that they face. What people end here at the end of the day is that an incident has happened or a job has been done. So as a job has been completed, or as the case may be, but the real conversations that happen in the field are sometimes missing or falls through the cracks. The real challenges that people face. So that's one of the driving forces for my advocating for coaching, in integrating coaching in safety, as well as for building this capacity for safety professionals to evolve from where they are to where they should be.
That's very interesting, especially when you said that you were working on two manuscripts at the same time. But, good thing your wife is there to keep you on track. And now
Yes.
we have two books that you've published already, and we'll be talking about the other book in another interview. Having talked about those challenges, were there any stories, like examples or chapters that were especially personal or meaningful for you to write? I understand this book is like a guidebook, and most of them were from your experience as a safety professional. Were there parts in the book that were already very personal or meaningful for you?
Yes, most of the stories in the book are indicative. I try not to actually use the real names or circumstances which pertain to real life. But actually, most of them do happen, either in my own experience or experiences of other people, you know.
Mhm.
So, earlier on, we talked about the police part of it, the policeman attitude
Report.
towards safety. You know, that was something that I did myself,
Mm.
and I still see a lot of safety professionals come in and still do that. So evolving from that to becoming who I am today with my approach towards safety is my personal story. One of the things you see in this book is the credentials, the safety qualifications and credentials that typical safety professional who's building that's for early career, mid career, and your later part career, what what credentials, what trainings, what exposures do you need to have? So some of this resonates with me because one of the things I did early on in my career, I was fortunate to have a mentor in when I started working sometime in early 2000. My supervisor then, when I got into, then I was working in ExxonMobil, and my supervisor, then safety was just emerging. Safety, in ExxonMobil, they call it that's safety, health, and environment. So it was emerging. And one of the advice that he gave to me was, this is an emerging field. Stick with it and build capacity. Find out what are the experiences and credentials, qualifications that the best people in this field do have and work towards them. So I looked at it then and I found NIBOSH, and I found the Board of Certified Safety Professionals in the US. I found the NFPA and others like that. So I drew a roadmap for myself to be able to work towards achieving them. And thankfully, I've been able to achieve all my plans with regards to this because I was very intentional on it. So while going along the way, I was able to pick up credentials, pick up the kind of experiences that I wanted, the kind of qualification, the kind of trainings, and all of that to build capacity. Then I found out that all of these things from a technical aspect is good, but I now found out that there is a human aspect to it. There's a leadership aspect to it, that you'll be able to lead, influence, and engage with people. So that drew me towards leadership training. Now, I've attended leadership training courses at MIT, at Stanford, at Oxford Said Business School, at Rotman's Business School in Toronto. So all of these things I try to build that capacity beyond just safety into leadership. Then I now saw that there was a need for me to understand how to engage with people. That's what drove me to coaching also.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, my experience actually provided me a roadmap to be able to get to the level that I am today, to be able to build that capacity from a technical to a leadership, and then to uh, engagement. The level of engagement that I would want to see any other safety professional build capacity to.
Mhm. Okay, so you shared your experiences in the book, hoping it's going to help other safety professionals or other people who would want to get into that profession. But let's flip that a little bit. What were the most important lessons that you learned about yourself during the publishing journey?
One of the things that I learned basically was resilience. Okay. This was the first time that I've written a book, actually published a book. I've written manuscripts here and there. I write on LinkedIn, I write on my blog. So, but I've never actually put together a book. So I had the structure, I had the information, but having the discipline to actually sit down and
Mhm.
actually write these things and go through it. So I had a couple of colleagues that I engaged with, and I saw they were doing something similar. Some of my colleagues that we worked together in Shell as well in Saudi Aramco. I engaged with them. Okay, guys, you've written books before. How was the journey and all of that? So I got some kind of mentorship. I got some kind of guidance from the people, other safety professionals also. So some kind of guidance and mentorship on how to navigate the whole process. And it actually helped a lot to be able to put together, and also the energy to, as they gave them manuscripts to proofread, to give me their feedback and things like that. So all of that worked through.
Mhm. What has been the most meaningful feedback or review that you've received about the book so far?
For this particular book, one of the most things is the young safety professionals that I've been able to impact. When people pick the book and they look at it, the book is, you see, you don't necessarily have to read it cover to cover. There's a section in the book that tells you how to use this book. So that section tells you where are you now? Where do you want to go to? So you can just navigate the chapters that relate to your reality, as it were. So I've had people who've gone through, just went through those chapters and were like, wow, this is what I've been looking for. This is what, I have tables at the back of the book. If you see some tables that provides guidance on the kind of organizations that's uh, safety and health organizations that you should engage in, depending on your field. If you are in construction, if you are in fire safety, these are the good practice bodies, okay, that you can engage in. You join as a member network and all of that. Then also the credentials that you would recommended credentials in those fields, or and how to also navigate them. So these are some things that when I put together and I shared it, I've had feedback from people to say, wow, it has never been clearer for me. People don't know what next to do. Some people just take one course and say, okay, based on that course, I'm a safety professional. But it doesn't end there. Where are you going? What is your end point? What do you want to achieve at the end of the day? So there are so many people in the safety field these days, but the difference is capacity. It's not just position, it's capacity. How can you build that capacity? So that's what one of the themes of this book, to help people to be able to build the capacity to grow as a safety professional, starting from your early career up to when you are in your advanced stage. So I've got good feedback from people so far, colleagues, as well as those that have bought the book, that have provided their feedback, which has been encouraging.
Yeah, that must have been amazing knowing the impact that you've made or the book has made to the people that you would want to reach in the first place. How about for other professionals who may want to write the book based on their expertise? What advice would you give them?
What I would say is start. That's the first thing. Because sometimes you may not be able to see the end from the beginning, but we all have a lot of information within us. Especially those who have been working in any particular field for a reasonable number of years. You see, one thing I always tell people, wherever you go to, always embed. Try to understand what's happening in those spaces. Because you see, experience, they say, is the best teacher. And how do you get this experience? It's with interactions. I've worked with project engineers, I've worked with production engineers, I've worked with those different types of professionals. But if you don't speak to people, if you don't engage with people, if you don't want to understand how people actually work, what is it they do, you know, in the oil and gas, in the drilling rigs, in the offshore platforms, in the facilities, refineries, wherever you find yourself, try to understand the process. Try to understand what do we do here? How do we improve this process from being the way what are the challenges that we face? How can we improve? Be a lifelong learner. Be a change agent. Look for improvements. Engage with people. You know, a lot of people want to share knowledge, but people are constrained. They are busy. They have other things they are faced with and all of that. But I encourage people as much as possible. You don't necessarily have to be the one who is actually writing the book, but you can provide knowledge to someone who is writing the book if you don't want to write the book. You can provide knowledge to someone who can sit down and use your knowledge to put down something. So, for experts who want to write the book, I encourage you, think about what you are doing. If there is always an area that you are good at, that you want to
Mhm.
share that knowledge, build on it and document it as much as possible. Because as you know, we are not always all here all the time, but whatever you put down, your contribution to knowledge, it will last for years. You never know how it will be. Someone will come tomorrow, years from now, they will look at it and they will build on it, but your name will always be there.
Yes, it's like a legacy,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes, yes. To a
Okay.
large extent, yes.
Uh-huh. So speaking about legacy, what's next for you and the book? I know you have two books out now, but are you working on something else, or do you have plans for the two books or this book in particular?
For me, right now, like I mentioned to you before, I'm working on a leadership framework
Oh.
that I call the Safety Edge Leadership. I told you I have a podcast, and in my
Mhm.
podcast, I'm advocating for uh, for shifting from compliance-based safety to a coaching-based approach to safety. And
Mhm.
beyond that, I'm enrolled in a DBA program now, in a doctorate program now, and I'm studying for my doctorate, and I'm researching on global business leadership. I'm trying to look at leadership attributes, how we can build the workplace of the future, taking into account those leadership judgment, the quality of the judgment, that's the leadership judgment, especially when we have competing priorities. How can we build that competence in people that we call leaders? Okay, like I mentioned before, leaders are in different categories, not necessarily positional leadership. There are people who are charismatic leaders. People
Mhm.
follow you. There are expert leaders also. There are peer leaders actually. People just look at them and they like them and they go with them. They have those attributes that they people gravitate to them. They are leaders even though they don't have positions. So they take decisions, and those decisions actually affect the people who follow them. So those that's what I'm researching. That's what I'm working on now. That's what I'm trying to see if I can build a framework where I can build competencies, where leaders can build their competencies in taking decisions and being able to build their capacity, especially when they are faced with competing priorities, which the world today, the workplace that we have today, those are the real challenges that people face in the workplace. There are competing priorities. There are constraints that people have to work around. I told you cost constraints, production constraints, time constraints, and budgets, and all of this. So people have to take these decisions, and the quality of their decisions depends on the competencies that they have to be able to think through it under pressure and be able to make those decisions.
You seem to be very busy, a lot to look forward to from you. So, Charles, please tell us where our viewers and listeners can connect with you. You said you have a podcast on the website. Tell us about that. If they want to learn more about the book or follow your future work, how can they connect with you? And please also invite them to get a copy of your book.
I'm very active on LinkedIn. I've been active for many years now, and I write on a newsletter on LinkedIn, which I focus on safety leadership. So you can find me, Charles Sampson Edgar. You find me on LinkedIn, and beyond that, I have a website, the Safety Edge platform. So the Safety Edge platform is the website that I use to promote my podcast, which is the Safety Edge podcast. Now, I advocate, same like what I mentioned before, about shifting from directional leadership to transformational, that's collaborative leadership, using insightful conversations to help people think through the process and make better decisions in the field. So you can find my website on the www the Safety Edge platform.org. There you will find my resources and the things, my blog, as well as my podcast. And I'm also on Spotify. I'm also on Spotify, on Apple, and on YouTube also, and Riverside. It's where I drop my podcast bi-weekly. I do drop new episodes, and in that podcast, you will find that I make some. It's a monologue kind of podcast for now, and I speak about the kind of scenarios that people face in the field, and I simulate some conversations where people find themselves in a dilemma, and how having using a coaching approach that they can be able to resolve simple issues, or not simple but conflicting issues, to be able to navigate those conflicts that they find themselves in the field. So that's how you can get to me. My book is on Amazon also, and also with on my publisher's website, Partridge.
All right, so it has been a very interesting conversation, Charles. We could go on and talk more about the book and about your experience. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your experience and perspective. It's been a truly valuable discussion on building a meaningful and impactful career in safety. So, if you'd like to learn more, be sure to get your copy of Becoming a Safety Professional, a practical guide for your next era by Charles Edgar. It's available in softcover, hardcover, and ebook formats on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Partridge Singapore's online bookstore, and other resellers. So, to all our viewers and listeners, thank you for joining us today. Until next time, this is Jenny for the Author Roundup.